I, Paul Diffley, hereby reconvene the Board of Education special meeting in open session at 5:05 p.m. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the public. We have a quorum present with all board members in attendance. I'd like to welcome the community members in attendance this evening. As a reminder, governing board meetings are a business meeting of the board, held in public, and although public participation is encouraged, it is not the public's meeting. It's the duty of the board president and the clerk of the board to maintain an orderly, respectful, and peaceful meeting where all perspectives, voices, and opinions are welcome. Please refrain from speaking out while another person has the floor. Don't speak over somebody while they're talking. At the appropriate time on the agenda, individuals wishing to provide public comment will be called upon one at a time to do so in accordance with Board Bylaw 9323. The board cannot and will not respond to any non-agendized items, but a staff member will reach out to you on matters that may need to be reviewed as appropriate. Item D1, the board met in closed session with legal counsel regarding potential litigation. No action was taken. Mr. Pardue, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag?
Yes, we stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item D2, approval of agenda. I call for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second it.
Any comments? Hearing none. Student preference, student this time. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. D3, public comment regarding meeting agenda items.
We have no public comments.
Okay. E, consent calendar. Consent calendar items are voted on collectively as a group. Upon board member request, items may be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and individual action. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar items E1 through E5 as presented?
So moved. I'll second it.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion is approved unanimously. F1, report on district staff professional growth opportunities. Dr. Andrus.
So trustees, President Diffley, we appreciate the opportunity tonight to have my senior executive staff share with us the work that we do in terms of investing in our employees. They'll share with you kind of our goal in this area, a little bit of a mission that we have. We're going to start with Mr. Darren Daniel, my deputy superintendent. He'll give you an update on the different areas that we've provided in terms of working with our staff to improve them. We know that when we invest in them, they're best prepared and equipped so that they can do the best work they possibly can. So you'll see that effort and where we are and where we're headed as well. So.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Good evening to President Diffley, board members.
Good evening.
I want to thank you for the opportunity tonight to give you a little bit of a insight on our response to our professional learning goals. In February, at the board workshop, you set direction for the school district, and as part of that direction, goal 3, professional growth of employees. Tonight, Ms. Muchnick, Mr. Rideout, and myself will try to provide you with an update of where we've been and where we're going. The organization of tonight's presentation will be to provide you with the vision and inspiration for our plan, and we'll share some of the highlights that we have accomplished, as well as provide you with some of the planned efforts that are planned to occur during this school year. Go to the next slide, Julie. There's an old adage that says, what gets measured gets done. And so our vision for our goal attainment is to provide learning and training opportunities for every district employee. This is an opportunity to make an investment, as Dr. Andrus said, And to each individual, this is a lofty vision that will require planning, execution, and tracking so we can ensure we provide professional growth and training opportunities for all. This includes classified and certificated and management and confidential employees. To kick this off, I'll hand this over to Ms. Munchnick so she can begin to share the story and provide you with some of the highlights that has taken place since last February.
Welcome.
Thank you. To move that down. Okay, as Mr. Daniel shared, I would like to just share a little bit of that inspiration and remind you of where we came from. We held our annual board workshop last February. We came together for the day to discuss the district's goals and directions for the coming year. This was where we really identified and affirmed our commitment as a district to professional growth for all employees, and it in fact became the third goal on our goal document that came out of that workshop. You may remember that one piece of the conversation that we had was the importance of investing in all our staff. I think long time we invest in teachers, of course, but also thinking about our classified and our management employees as well. And each group is actually addressed in that goals document. Finally, I'd like to remind you that these goals align to our LCAP, which also has a goal for professional growth and allocates funds for this purpose. And make sure you know that we are in a really fortunate place right now with the state's Educator Effectiveness Grant. It provides our district with a lot of funding, which is completely to be used completely and only to provide training and professional development for those employees who directly support student learning. Okay, tonight we're going to start with some of the highlights of the trainings that we've already implemented. Some of these are things that we have had ongoing for a long time, but we just want to remind you of those. And then some of these were developed as a result of the intentional planning around our district goal to provide relevant and meaningful PD to all employees. Mr. Rideout.
With that, when you're talking about training and professional growth, you really have a couple different components. Starting with usually those annual compliance components that we all know so well in education. Those are the things that take part each and every year for each and every educator and each and every employee. Each and every one of you at some point has taken part in some of these trainings. And if you're in education each and every year, you've taken all of them for a while. And I'll just to point some out to you, obviously like a mandated reporter training, each and every one of you knows what that training is. Some things that have evolved over time as part of those annual mandated trainings are things like youth suicide, awareness, prevention, and postvention, sudden cardiac arrest in athletes. Those are things that have been added over time and weren't there 20 years ago. But as you know, these trainings continue to grow over time and are needed to make sure that our students are safe. As we move forward, I'm going to talk about our classified employees. Some of these trainings are things they've been doing, but a lot of them are also things that have been added as part of the intentional intentional movement towards making sure that each and every one of our employees has training at some level. On this slide, you'll see transportation and maintenance. It's a laundry list, right, of things. But some things that you would expect. Obviously, with maintenance, grounds, and operations, you'd expect pest control, you'd expect chemicals, those types of things to be there. On transportation, though, I don't think a lot of us think about the things that are needed, that our bus drivers need each and every day, or bus aides need. Things like, how do you deal with troubling behaviors on a bus? How do you deal with a student that needs accommodation on a bus? Luckily, those trainings are now being provided, and a lot of that has come because of our work with CSEA, our partners in CSEA, and actually being able to develop an MOU this year that allowed for 4 days of training prior to the start of the year for our friends in transportation to make sure that our kids are getting to and from school each day safely. When we look at nutrition and technology, obviously those are two departments that are always training, right? Nutrition, we know people need to be able to serve food safely, and each of our nutrition workers has their food handlers permits. They have those types of trainings, but things that might not jump out at you, it's like salad preparation training, slicer training, things that keep people safe, but also make sure that our kids are getting food in a safe, healthy manner, and they meet the legal requirements of the law. On the technology side, I think we all know that's growing each and every day. Not just the training regarding Windows 11 and the support for staff, but also the training to infrastructure to make sure that our systems are staying safe and that they're meeting federal guidelines in order to be safe. When we move on into our payroll, fiscal departments, and purchasing departments, those are each getting training as well. We need to make sure that our people that are providing payroll are attending W-2 workshops, 1099 workshops. Our friends in fiscal are making sure that they're up to date in book accounting, making sure that that training is taking place. And then our friends in purchasing also are taking part in trainings regarding capital assets and supply and accounting. Once we buy stuff, we need to make sure we're taking care of it, and we need to make sure we're being fiscally responsible with how we track it. And lastly, in human resources and risk management and benefits, the training goes on all the time. The reality is, in order to ensure that we have high quality teachers in our classroom, we need to make sure that those people are appropriately credentialed. Therefore, we have to make sure that people that verify those credentials are appropriately trained. And with that, you'll see a lot of different variations of training that take place, from things like EdJoin, how do we post those positions? That's kind of the industry standard in California on how we post a job. But how do they learn to do those things? As well as on the risk management and benefit side, you're going to see that we need to make sure that our people are appropriately trained in claims, because people do get hurt at work. You know, people fall, people slip. And when that happens, how are we taking care of our staff, and how are we meeting legal requirements to do that? So we make sure that our people are getting trained there. There's some other various ones listed there that are fun to read, but those are some of the high points. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Daniel regarding administrative and management.
As Faith said, professional learning has always been something in our mind's eye. But over the past 2 decades since I've been in the school district, I could say we've always provided training when we've been able to. However, I don't know if we've ever been, as I'll say, calculated or purposeful with our training. And so this past year, we started with a leadership training series. As we have new administrators coming in to the fold, it's really important that we become consistent and with some baseline understanding of what some best practices. And so this year was an opportunity for us to be able to provide the leadership training series for all certificated and classified managers. This summer, our principals and along with educational services had an opportunity to immerse themselves in a 3-day professional learning opportunity based on PLCs. That gave us an opportunity for us to be able to not only dive deeper into best practices for PLCs, but also the time together to be able to collaborate and get aligned. Classified management leaders, this is something relatively new. Historically, like I said, over the past 20 years, although we provided a little bit of training, we weren't always purposeful. So this summer, we had a 2-day leadership opportunity where we provided an opportunity off-site here at, we used Azusa Pacific University to provide leadership skill development in all of our classified managers, and also policy and practice implementation. With that, we also included some non-management employees. So we have a host of classified employees who lead teams. They could be an operations lead, a maintenance like crew leader. Although they're still bargaining it, we certainly want to build that bench and make sure there's a readiness for those folks to learn and be able to identify their strengths and weaknesses as it relates to leading individuals. Also, this past year, this past spring, we did secondary assistant principal master schedule training. And so essentially is, if you've ever tried to build a master schedule at a high school, especially a large high school, ensuring 8,000 high school kids and 4,000 middle school kids all have appropriate schedules it's not an easy task. So we were able to get that done. In addition to that, we have human resources who works with a number of agencies to provide training for all of human resources. So dealing with investigations, frisk, working with the Inland Personnel Council. There's just a variety of different trainings that HR and risk management are required to attend annually because of changing legislation and, of course, to be compliant with new laws. In addition to that, administrative development, it'll be Jen Shriver's and Joe Parla's responsibility to work with elementary school principals on the monthly to not only build leadership capacity, but to collaborate around best practices. Great.
Okay, on the certificated teacher end of side, we want to start by highlighting the training that's been in place to support our 2 focus areas, PLCs and MTSS. You'll remember that we had an introduction to the PLC focus for all teachers last year by Dr. Anthony Muhammad, and he also came to speak at our PD Day and provide training also for our leadership teams and our site administrators. This really set the stage for the reboot of our PLC focus. And then for MTSS, the Ed Services team actually took part in a lot of training last spring, actually all last year, to better understand how we wanted to approach this initiative and roll it out. We successfully kicked off the school climate and positive behavior focus with a half-day training for all of our school site teams this summer. Here we shared the why of the work and helped staff build an understanding of the elements of an effective Tier 1 system. And interestingly enough, while this is listed under certificated and teachers, the site teams are made up of administrators and teachers and classified, which I love. So we're really bringing everyone together to work on this work. And then lastly, on this slide, you'll see our induction and immersion trainings that occurred over the summer to support teachers new to the district and new to the profession. One of the powerful things about this training is that while we are training new teachers, we're also training our mentors. And they have their own training days, and many of them report that the growth that they experience just by taking part in this process is really huge. Okay, and then on this slide for certificated, we just have listed some of the ongoing opportunities for growth here. Many of our teaching positions have regular meetings with colleagues from across the district that share similar jobs, where they can really collaborate on their focus. Some examples are listed, our EL teachers, our TK teachers, for example. We've also shared that we have teams of teachers who meet to work on curricular issues with district staff. And of course, there's a great deal of learning when you're collaborating and trying to figure out some of these instructional decisions that we're making and developing assessments and pacing guides. Our elementary teams also receive coaching from our elementary TOSAs, which is really valuable. They actually go out and meet with the grade level team. It's like a small team working together, and it can really be flexible to meet their specific needs. And then as we continue, we continue to send representatives from across the district to the Excellence Through Equity conference each year. And then at the end, I've identified some of the recently offered trainings just to highlight some of the varied opportunities that staff have. One thing I'll point out, our TK training has had to be huge as we've expanded the program and we're working with younger students. And then one training that's up there is behavioral supports in a general ed environment, and gotten a lot of feedback that this has been very helpful, especially in our younger classrooms where it started. We're expanding it to the upper grades, but you'd be surprised some of the behaviors that we are dealing with in the very young classrooms. And so it's been very helpful for teachers. Okay, so believe it or not, that was the looking back. Now we're going to look forward for a few slides. So those are some of the things that we've already done, we've put in place, they're ongoing. We wanted to just build that picture for you of what the district does. The next few slides, we're going to go into the training initiatives that are planned for this coming year, as well as some of the things that we're exploring.
So in working with our classified staff and kind of analyzing what have been some needs over the last few years, some of the trainings that are in the process of being developed that we're looking at trying to bring to our classified staff is a Microsoft Office Suite Specialist, which there is a expert certificate and a master certification with Microsoft. We also are looking at MTSS for classified support staff. We've done so much training with our teachers in MTSS and our certificated staff with multi-tiered systems of support. We have to recognize that we have classified personnel that are working with our staff and our teachers and our students as well to make sure that they're appropriately trained. We're looking at doing some class staff training audit and accounting, and those are for more of the fiscal division, to make sure that they're holding up the processes that, the trainings that are needed to hold up the processes required to meet their legal requirements. And with that.
For our administrative and management teams, Dr. Andrus will be bringing us 4 roles of leadership. And the best way to unpack this is we're talking about a framework that focus on us doing our part as leaders to really focus on how can we sustain long-term achievement. We always say there's managers that are leaders, and managers work in the system to do good things, but leaders work on the system to do the right things. And so it's going to be important for us to be calibrated together. Second to that, we're going to continue the leadership training series this year. Although we're going to do a little bit different of a format, we're going to break into some smaller groups and be able to broaden the topics and allow folks to go deeper with individual topics they believe they need to go deeper with. Also, Certificated Management has an opportunity this year. They're going to be starting a Women's Leadership Network, and as well as rebooting the Aspiring Administrators Workshop Series. That is really designed for aspiring school site administrators. Could be teachers, it could be folks who are working in a coordinator position who might want that opportunity to be an assistant principal or principal. And so Mr. Rideout and his HR team will be kicking that off here shortly. And also instructional minutes and accounting compliance will be something that we are going to take part in. We always are trying to get better at trying to be more compliant with especially some of our alternative programs that we're offering within our school district.
Okay. And looking forward with professional learning communities, we're really excited for the new positions that we have in place for professional learning team leads. These are supporting the work of every team, whether it's a grade level at elementary, a course-specific team at secondary, or even we have cross-site teams, for instance, like our CTE teachers from different sites or our special day class teams. This year, all of the leads will have an opportunity to take part in extensive training around the knowledge and skills needed to lead the PLC successfully. This really includes strengthening the capacity of the team and really working together to drive student success.
Can I ask you a question? Are the leads, are they just regular classroom teachers or are they TOSAs?
They're regular, it's a stipend position. So every team in our district that meets as a PLT will have someone assigned as a lead who will get the training to support this work.
Okay.
It's really exciting.
Mrs. Mutchik, is that what we used to call DISLEs?
It is. It is how it's evolved over time.
I know we've changed the name because DISLE didn't make sense.
Yeah, and DISLE was only like a department, and it was only at secondary level. The PLT leads are from pre-K all the way to ATP.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, very, very cool. Excited to see how that works. The MTSS site teams will also take part in continued training, 3 more trainings throughout the year, extending what was started in our kickoff. District staff will also serve as coaches to help the teams take their learning and put it into action. They'll attend the meetings at the sites. And then lastly, to support the focus on school climate and positive behavior, the district will be providing short videos that sites will show at staff meetings that will highlight different actions and strategies that classroom teachers can use to really promote a positive classroom climate and really get ahead or respond to classroom behaviors. So this is something that will be shown throughout the school year.
And with the peer leadership mentoring inclusion efforts at the secondary level schools with the students, the gen ed students who are being peer mentors, is there any interest in training some of them in some of this? Some of the MTSS?
Potentially, I haven't thought of that. That's something we can consider.
Because they're in the classroom one-on-one.
Working with those students,
with our special ed students, absolutely.
They're getting a lot of training specifically, through the classroom, but bringing them into some of the language and the thinking there, absolutely, it's a good idea.
Because I think a lot of them also are going to be then in the education pathway, the CTE education pathway. And again, getting the lingo and the ideas might be a really interesting prospect for those students. Okay.
Okay. I'm also excited to share with you the newly developed Teaching Essentials program. I actually spoke about this before. Remember I said we don't have a name or a logo yet? We do now, so we're super excited. It's Teaching Essentials. It's a 4-day series that all of our teachers who are new to the district will be required to take part in over 2 years. It will also be offered to any new teachers who are interested. Here are the 4 topics of the training: creating and maintaining effective learning environments, engaging and supporting all students in learning, planning and designing learning for all students, and using and adapting technology to support student learning. And these are broken up by elementary and secondary. And I should say, my mind just went here for a minute, like the videos we were showing, we're really focusing on bringing the practices that we're seeing our teachers use and actually getting video of teachers in action within the district to illustrate the things that we're hoping that others think about and think about how they can incorporate. Finally, we've listed some key upcoming instructional training. We continue to support our early childhood TK teachers this year as the programs expand. We're also looking forward to training around foundational reading instruction at the elementary level. We're building a district-wide group of teachers, understanding of supporting English learners. And that, again, that's going to be a K-12 effort. And we have added a math institute that addresses best instructional practices for teaching math at the secondary level. We will end with this quote: "The growth and development of people is the highest calling of leadership." So I'm sure you can see we're very excited. We're passionate about this work. I think us as a district team are excited about the scope, that it's not one group, it's really hitting on a lot of different groups, and that goal that Mr. Daniels spoke of early on, that every employee in our district would walk away at the end of the year saying that they've had quality training to make them better at what they do. So at this time, we'll just open it up, see if you have any questions.
I have a comment.
Okay.
I started teaching in 1962, which was just after the invention of white bread. This book of your presentation was what was taught then. It's phenomenal how far you have come, your group has come to provide everyone in the district, every single person, with the possibilities of growth and becoming better in the things that they do, and in the interchange they have between all the different folks. And I really have to compliment you. It's stunning. Stunning.
Very big team effort. Although the three of us are up here talking about it, you can imagine the number of people who are involved in developing these options and opportunities.
I really like the idea of building the bench like that. I know was it about 5 years ago when we really started focusing in on classified training and the Microsoft Office suite and that kind of thing, because I think our classified staff, we're seeing so many people being hired in from outside who had higher skill levels. So of course they were getting those jobs, but our own people were not moving up. And I've seen a real evolution in that, as Mr. Diffley has pointed out. Just really building our bench so that because people do retire, they age out, they go other places, and being able to pull from our own family is awesome. And to have that skill set and skill base there. So thank you so much. This is awesome work.
Yeah, thank you. I noticed one of the comments you made about induction coaching, because I am one for the county, and you do learn a lot from every single person you coach. So, and I'm also going through your Keenan training, which I have been doing every single year, but there are new modules, and I really appreciated the one on defibrillators because I didn't really know anything about that. So I feel like I know a little bit, so anyway, I think this is great. So.
I did have a question. There was an administrative training that you were talking about, and I think it was an institute. And I'm curious how you have teachers who lead. I was wondering if there's a way in which administrators who, visiting Warm Springs, I saw a system-oriented gentleman there, Terry, and I forgot how to pronounce it. Pichitino. I was very impressed. And I'm curious, and you've been doing it for a long time, if in the administrative coaching, as you find potential leaders, is that something that is done as well for the administrators? You have a lead teacher or a teacher helping new teachers. Is there some kind of mentoring going on when we get new administrators?
For our new administrators, it's a good question. Let me think for a minute I think we have a lot of things in place. The leadership training series, and please step in. The leadership training series is one. I would say a lot of learning for our new administrators occurs through the collaborative teams that they have. and that Ms. Schreiber and Mr. Parla oversee. And so they're meeting, they're talking about things, but they're also talking about initiatives and how to implement them and learning from each other. So those would be a couple of things I would share.
Nick, one of the things I think has been remarkable for, I'll say my own personal development, is we have had a practice before I came here, high school principals together, middle school principals together, elementary school principals working and really in their own professional learning community where ideas are just kind of moving back and forth. And I mean, it could, this could have been as simple as a testing schedule back in the day, all the way to exactly what you're talking about. What is working and how can we replicate that throughout the system? A lot of the things we worked on this past year, like I said, is trying to become consistent with best practices. And I think that's what you're talking about. How can we take someone who's taken a risk at a school site and it's working really well, and how do we move that to the next place? And I think that's really the magic of the school district, where people are willing to share. People are not trying to one-up each other. It's really about people taking risks and trying to empower teacher leaders or wherever they're at to be able to come to the table and be part of that conversation and share the success that we're having.
Yeah. I think Mr. Rideout wants to add a comment about the aspiring administrators and how that will work. I can kind of tell.
Well, I was trying to figure out which direction he was going with the question, but yes, to piggyback off that and the build the bench concept, we do have aspiring administrators that's starting. We've sent the application out. We currently have 42 applicants for the program. So for the first time, or I shouldn't say that for the first time, but as a reboot, I'll say that we're going to actually be selecting some candidates for this that will be our people in-house. They're going to go through a set of training series, which will be all the different departments. So these future administrators will have the ability to, one, learn from the people in the departments here, get to know the Murrieta way, and simultaneously we'll also have some opportunities to actually shadow those administrators at their sites as part of the process. The goal is to build the bench. The goal is to build people that know the Murrieta way and that culture of just collaboration and how we can grow together.
Is the application due date for that over? Just coincidentally, I was contacted today by someone who is starting his admin credential, and I'm writing down a note. I've got to text him tonight about this in case he's not already in it.
August 23rd, I think is today. Is today the 24th?
Today's 24th.
I think it was yesterday. We're moving fast because we already started looking at the applications today. So
Can I talk to you after the meeting?
You can always talk to me, of course. And I'll listen. Yes.
Awesome. Okay.
And this is for this one, this is an annual. We recognize the need to do that. I think part of the conversation too is how do we support someone who's in the middle of it, right? Someone who's new. In our case, we have 5 new elementary school principals. All 5 of them have been former administrators in the district. They're already kind of attuned to how we operate. And so, but internally they have someone who supervises them, but they already have this kind of cohesive nature about them. And so they're able to, they have relationships among each other.
Yeah.
So they may not have an assigned mentor in a formal setting or a formal coach that way. There is a support network around them. And what we try to facilitate is that you don't always have to turn to your supervisor, turn to your peer. What have you got going on? And I've talked to some of these newer principals who said, oh, I've already been texting so-and-so. I had a conversation with them as they experience something new or a challenge, like, how'd you do this? And so we see that happening pretty regularly, an iteration of that. But again, it comes back down to how do we fund an outside coaching service or something to take it to another level. But with what we have available, we have some good systems in place.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just had one more comment. I just wanted to thank you, Dr. Andrus, and the team for providing a sampling of some of the trainings. And there's so many here, but I was curious about a couple. One of them turned out to be something completely different than I was thinking it was. So the PRO Act, I thought it had something to do with independent contractors, and it was not that at all. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, if you dive into PRO Act, it is a very, very important training that our people have. It's essential. I would have it years ago when I worked outside of in a different type of setting. But for our staff, it's a critical set of training skills that our staff need. So, okay.
Well, I thank the team for a great presentation. You have given us some wonderful things to think about and to appreciate. Moving on to F2, which is the approval of the personnel report.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. F3, assignment of middle school teachers to teach in a departmentalized classroom pursuant to Education Code 44256B for the 23-24 school year. This requires a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments on this? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. F4, assignment of middle school teachers to teach in a departmentalized classroom pursuant to Education Code 44258.2 for the 23-24 school year. This requires a motion.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. F5, first reading of proposed revisions to Administrative Regulation AR 4127, temporary athletic team coaches. Do board members have any comments or questions?
I do. I'm actually very glad to see this come back to us with the proposed changes. First started, the last time we updated it was in 2020, and it was a little controversial, and actually I pumped the brakes on it and asked for an extra month to look into it, because right before the meeting, I had gotten several emails that week on both sides of this, as far as whether management should be also coaching. And after we paused it for another month, I opened it up and said, anybody who wants to talk to me about it, please do. And many, many, many employees came and spoke to me, in this, particularly in the counseling realm, where many people came to talk to me to say that they had to pick up all of the slack when their colleague would go out to go coach, and they either had to pick up those extra students, and then the student wasn't going to the regular counselor. So it really was a problem, and student educational outcomes were being affected, and morale was being affected. And that's kind of where we went with that. At the time, I did state that I felt it really was a blanket knee-jerk reaction to some things that had gone on, that maybe it wasn't the best solution. And so I'm so glad to see this come back. And I hope, and Mr. Wright, I will address this to you, that this is carefully monitored, so that, because it can be easily abused again. And in a lot of ways, it's a lot more fun to go coach than to do your 40-hour-a-week job. But that 40-hour-a-week job needs to come first. And so that we can really monitor that and make sure that that's happening for students and for the other the colleagues of the people who are coaching.
Thank you for that.
Little
Any other
history.
comments?
I agree, although I think they work way more than 40 hours.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Let's say 80 hours.
Oh, right.
And they're a lot like you.
No, I agree. Oh, I haven't been around as long, but this makes sense to me. So, yeah, I agree.
Okay, F6, approval of the 23-24 application for funding consolidated application and reporting system. Requires a motion.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries 5-0. F7, second reading and adoption of proposed new board policy BP 3523, electronic signatures. This requires a motion.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries 5-0. Aye. Not me, but aye. Adjournment. I call for a motion and a second to adjourn the Board of Education meeting at 5:44 p.m.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming. You've been a great audience.
I'm going to